Noir Plasma Chrome Bleed. Unlocking knowledge, inspiring innovation, empowering curious minds.
This website makes learning so easy. I found all my resources here.
Like what you share.
Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're gearing up for the ICMEI CMA Final Paper 13, you already know corporate and economic laws can feel like an absolute mountain of dense legal theory. But today, we're going to bridge that massive gap between abstract statutory frameworks and practical, high-scoring exam application. We're going to decode exactly what the examiners are looking for, using the official suggested solutions and a longitudinal analysis of past exams. Let's just dive right in.
Here's our roadmap for today. We'll be hitting corporate law jurisprudence, the decriminalization paradigm, economic and capital market laws, Paper 13 curricular architecture, longitudinal exam testing domains, and finally, the examiner evaluation matrix. Let's get started. We are starting right at the bedrock with Section 1, corporate law jurisprudence and its theoretical foundations.
Historically, corporate law was incredibly rigid. Think back to the classical model, like that famous Salomon v. Solomon ruling. Back then, a corporation was strictly a legal fiction. It was totally obsessed with maximizing shareholder wealth and maintaining a massive, impenetrable wall between the company and its directors. Fast forward to today, it's a radically different reality. The modern framework is completely stakeholder-oriented. It's all about corporate social responsibility and heavy socioeconomic regulatory oversight. You've really got to wrap your head around this shift because it dictates exactly how the examiners are framing those tricky case studies.
And that evolution brings us perfectly to Section 2, the decriminalization paradigm.
So, historically, prosecutors were up against this huge hurdle, perfectly summed up by this old Latin maxim. Basically, it means an act doesn't make a person guilty unless their mind is also guilty, right? So, how exactly do you prove an artificial, non-human, corporate entity actually has a guilty mind? Because of this loophole, companies used to dodge a lot of criminal prosecutions. But obviously, the legal system had to figure out a way to hold these entities and the people running them accountable. To fix this, the law actually matured through 4 distinct phases. Phase 1 was your traditional common law with strict criminal sanctions. But that wasn't quite cutting it. Enter Phase 2, where Indian courts adopted the alter ego theory. You probably remember this from the Iridium case, which basically took the mental state of senior management and slapped it directly onto the company. Then, in Phase 3, the Supreme Court refined things with the middle case, saying they needed explicit statutory provisions to impute liability to directors. But Phase 4? That's the real game changer. Legislators finally realized that throwing executives in jail for minor paperwork errors was literally paralyzing business operations. So, in 2019 and 2020, they essentially decriminalized a bunch of offenses, moving them over to in-house adjudication mechanisms for civil monetary penalties instead of jail time. Huge shift. All right, shifting gears now to the high-stakes rules of the modern market in Section 3, economic and capital market laws. When a company hits financial distress, it's usually pure chaos. And that is exactly where the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, the IBC, steps in. The whole code is built on what's called the creditor bargain theory. Instead of individual creditors just scrambling in this self-defeating race to grab whatever assets they can get their hands on, the law mandates a statutory collective action mechanism. By triggering an automatic moratorium, it basically hits the pause button on all individual enforcement actions. Why? Simply to preserve the actual going concern value of that distressed debtor.
And when it comes to insolvency on the exam, this number right here is absolutely crucial, 330. You know the initial corporate insolvency process is supposed to wrap up in 180 days, maybe with a single 90-day extension if you're lucky, but 330 days? That is the absolute hard stop statutory outer limit to finish the whole thing, including all legal proceedings. Examiners absolutely love testing this timeline, so definitely lock that one in your brain. Beyond insolvency, keeping the capital markets clean relies on some really strict mandates. Take SEBI's aggressive rule for top-listed entities. They literally have 24 hours to confirm or deny material rumors in the mainstream media. Talk about stamping out market manipulation. On the inside, governance is super tight too, requiring prior audit committee approval for any related party transactions. Looking externally, dominant players are strictly barred from using predatory pricing to crush their rivals. And if you're dealing with capital account transactions, or FDI, you're navigating the heavily policed waters of FEMA.
Okay, we've covered the real-world ecosystem, so let's pivot to the actual examination arena in Section 4, Paper 1-3, Curriculum Architecture.
Honestly, the daunting Paper 13 syllabus becomes so much more manageable when you just look at the strategic breakdown. It's a clean 60-40 split. Exactly 60% of your exam is Section A, Corporate Laws, which leans heavily on the Companies Act and the IBC. The remaining 40% is Section B, Economic Laws, sweeping in SEBI, FEMA, the Competition Act, and those sector-specific cyber laws. Make sure your study time actually reflects this weightage.
And if you map these modules against the exact cognitive skills being tested, your whole study strategy crystallizes. The examiners aren't just looking for rote memorization here. For the Companies Act, they want deep analytical comprehension to untangle complex case studies. For the IBC, you've got to execute flawless priority calculations under that statutory waterfall mechanism. And for CB, they're testing your ability to evaluate regulatory risk in real-world procedural scenarios. Basically, they want to see high-level synthetic governance analysis.
Now, what's really fascinating is diving into the historical data. Let's explore Section 5, Longitudinal Exam Testing Domains. A massively recurring theme over the last 5 exam terms is corporate restructuring. The examiners consistently want to see if you can distinguish between general mergers under Section 232, which require a 75% shareholder approval in value, versus the highly restrictive fast-track procedures under Section 233. Keep in mind, fast-track restructuring is absolutely off the table for public-listed mergers. It's strictly limited to small companies or mergers between a holding company and its wholly owned subsidiaries. Another absolute favorite on this exam is corporate social responsibility. When evaluating CSR mandates, you need to instantly run through this 3-step checklist. Does the company have a net worth of 500 crore, a turnover of 1,000 crore, or a net profit of 5 crore in the preceding financial year? If they hit just one of those, they are legally forced to spend 2% of their average net profits. Oh, and here is a pro tip straight from the official Standard Solutions. If an initiative is designed exclusively to benefit the company's own employees, it doesn't legally qualify as a valid CSR expenditure. Scratch it off your list. Finally, let's look at the ultimate cheat code for passing this thing in Section 6, the Examiner Evaluation Matrix. This matrix right here is pulled directly from the official marking guidelines. If you want top marks on those long-form answers, you have to follow this 3-step matrix to a T. Step 1, statutory citation. Give them the exact section number, the act, the rules. No generic fluff allowed. Step 2, legal synthesis. You need to logically map those specific legal provisions directly onto the case facts from the prompt. And step 3, the operational conclusion. You have to provide an unambiguous verdict. Is the transaction voidable? Is there a penalty? Just state it clearly and confidently. I want to leave you with this final thought. When you look at this source material, there's a clear trajectory. These exams are increasingly integrating data privacy under the IT Act along with ESG compliance reporting. Mastering this whole ecosystem isn't just about surviving Paper 13 using that matrix we just talked about. As ESG and cyber laws completely reshape the corporate landscape, the real question is, are you prepared to be the strategic compliance leader that tomorrow's businesses desperately need? Thanks for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I really hope this gives you the exact framework you need to completely crush your study plan.
Like what you share.
This website makes learning so easy. I found all my resources here.
Noir Plasma Chrome Bleed. Unlocking knowledge, inspiring innovation, empowering curious minds.